Traditional weaponry has provided protection as well as essential tools for hunting. Osio Nagad, Jennifer Lauren Dawado. Hello everyone, I'm Jennifer Lauren, Cherokee Nation citizen and host of Osio, Voices of the Cherokee People, and Senior Director of Cherokee Film. Welcome to Chalagi, wherever we are. Today we delve into the history, processes, and uses of weaponry through Cherokee National Treasures known for their expertise. What we call weapons were actually essential tools needed to sustain and protect life for our ancestors. These included blowguns and bows for hunting and guarding, knives and scrapers for processing animals and foods, and a lot more. We'll start today's show with remarks from Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin Jr. Then, Chief Hoskin will join me to talk a little bit more about the craft of traditional weaponry. After that, we'll see an interview led by Deputy Chief Bryan Warner with Cherokee National Treasure Vyrl Keeter. Next is our panel discussion, where we'll welcome two more national treasures known for their weapon crafting. And finally, we are excited to have Cherokee National Treasure Robert Lewis with us to share a story. And now it is my pleasure to introduce my friend and Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. for his remarks.
Osio, today we come together to celebrate a cornerstone of Cherokee culture, the revered art of traditional weapon making, and the vital role it plays in our cultural preservation. The Cherokee National Treasures program serves as a beacon for our traditional Cherokee customs and the artisans who safeguard them. One distinct category within the Treasures program is set aside for traditional weapon makers. These things not only embody our history, but also symbolize the resilience and ingenuity of the Cherokee people. We will learn more on this broadcast from the revered craftsmen who meticulously create native weapons, bows and arrows, blowguns, spears, arrow points, and atlatls. For centuries, the skill of crafting these weapons has been passed down through generations of Cherokee families. In the hands of skilled artisans like the National Treasures you'll learn more about today, these weapons are not just tools, but are symbols of our cultural continuity. They link us to our past and guide us into the future. They remind us of the resourcefulness and creativity that have sustained the Cherokee people through countless trials. As we honor the artisans who keep this ancient tradition alive, let us reaffirm our commitment to cherishing and protecting our Cherokee culture. The art of weapon making is not just a skill, but a sacred duty, one that links us to our ancestors and the land we all cherish. We're proud and grateful for the masters who uphold this legacy. Their dedication to mastering age-old techniques ensures that our culture remains vibrant and alive. At Cherokee Nation, we're ensuring that future generations will be able to appreciate these Cherokee traditions and continue making these weapons. Wado.
Wado Chief, and thanks for joining me over here today to discuss traditional weaponry, a topic that I don't know a ton about, but I am very interested to learn more. So Chief, we know of discoveries that have verified our use of weapons historically. Viewers may see this subject matter and think we were constantly a warring tribe. So do you know how often did we find it necessary to defend our homelands against invaders? As I understand, we didn't have constant sworn enemies, correct?
Right. Well, first of all, it's exciting that we're learning more through archaeology as time goes by, and I'm excited about what we'll all learn on this show. But my understanding of this historic record and what the archaeological record shows is that we weren't constantly at war. I think, like a lot of people's, war was born of necessity. It was born of protecting resources. It was born of protecting ourselves. We certainly were prepared for war. We certainly had the techniques and the ability to war, and there's records of us engaging in battles both in ancient times and then of course in more contemporary recorded history. After contact, we know that we allied with different peoples, whether it was native peoples or the British in some cases pre the founding of the United States, and then we fought alongside the United States. So we have this long and I think proud tradition of going to war when necessary. I think what's really excited is getting into the deep history and discovering the weapons that our people use. It certainly does bring to mind this idea that we were a warring nation, but I think it was often born of necessity as opposed to just constant aggression, certainly.
That makes sense. So we historically played stickball, our war game, in order to not only settle local disputes, but also to prepare ourselves for threats from outside of our lands. So if we were so prepared, here's a question. What do you know about why Cherokees didn't physically fight the U.S. troops at the time of our removal?
Yeah, I think this is a really natural question, and it's one that causes us, I think, to re-examine that period of history, which of course is so pivotal for our people. One thing that I think about in thinking about this question was what was going on in the Cherokee Nation. We were a government based on democratic principles, a government based on the rule of law with an elected leadership, John Ross being our chief. We had done what I think is sort of the progress of humanity, hopefully, is that we lean into diplomacy, democracy, governments built on the rule of law, as opposed to warfare. What our people were doing at that time, led by Chief Ross, was actually actively resisting removal where in the courts, in the Congress, toe-to-toe with the President of the United States in negotiations. And even when removal looked to be a foregone conclusion, or at least it seemed to be that that was the direction it was happening, there were still negotiations going on about what removal would look like. And of course you had a faction of Cherokees who saw things differently. They wanted to preserve the Cherokee Nation as well, but the Ridge Party was really looking at making an agreement with the United States and hastening removal, again, for the preservation of the Cherokee people and the Cherokee Nation. So that was the dominant school of thought. That doesn't leave a lot of room for let's go to the war with the United States. There surely was some thinking that the United States, being this emerging world power, would have been a difficult foe. And I think the energy and resources were put into resisting removal towards, again, those tools of diplomacy, the tools of dealing with another nation toe-to-toe as two sovereigns, and then ultimately shifting the negotiations and the effort towards making removal different than what the United States wanted. Of course, removal was something that did great trauma and injury to the Cherokee people. We know that story, but I think that was the mindset at the time. It wasn't a mindset that we're going to fight our way physically out of this really difficult situation. I do think that built something in our national character, though, what we did leaning into reason and diplomacy and democracy and the rule of law, because it's carried with us to the present day. And I think actually, as traumatic as removal was, and we wish it wouldn't have happened, those things that we built up, I think, are things that help us today.
Absolutely. Okay, so Cherokee National Treasures, one unique thing about them is their motivation to involve a new generation by passing down time-honored techniques and knowledge. Many Cherokee National Treasures are treasures for making traditional weaponry. So how critical is it to keep those traditions thriving?
Well, it's critical for the same reason it's critical to keep the tradition of pottery alive or other art forms. I think weaponry, though, helps us tell a particular story about one aspect of Cherokee history and culture that is not as understood maybe as some of the others. And so we're now, I think, learning more about that part of our culture because we have great national treasures and others today that are learning about it themselves and developing replicas of those weapons and in some cases showing us how they were used. It really captures people's imagination, no matter who you are. If you see somebody using an atlatl, if you see any number of instruments of fighting, there's something about that that I think draws you in because it's unique. Anything we can do, I think, to spark the imagination, particularly of young people, to think about their culture, we should do. And I've been out to gatherings, and I can tell you some of these demonstrations are the most popular around. I mean, you see Vyrl Keeter doing flint knapping, which I know we'll talk about later on this show. People are sort of mesmerized by that. We look at what Noel Grayson does, not only creating a blow dart gun and showing how it was used. He knows the history of this, and he'll cite historical references about European encounters with Cherokees using this tool, and I just think that makes it come alive for people. So perpetuating that is a good thing, and fortunately we've got a lot of people involved in that are keeping it alive.
Absolutely, and shameless plug for OCO TV, we've actually featured a lot of these national treasures who make weapons on our show, and that's where I learned about the atlatl and got to use one for the first time, but it's there's a lot to be learned there, so I encourage all of you to visit oco.tv after you watch this show to learn more. So, but you're so right about our Cherokee National Treasures. They're skilled craftsmen and women, but they also know the history and the science behind their national treasure weaponry designation. Truly, they are treasures. Well, that is all the time we have. So Wado, Chief, for another opportunity to hear your insights into another important Cherokee subject matter and for your strong leadership.
Thank you.
We now go to Tahlequah, where Deputy Chief Bryan Warner joins Cherokee National Treasure Vyrl Keeter to learn more about flint knapping. Deputy?
What Jen? CO Nagad, we're here in the backyard of Mr. Vyrl Keeter, Cherokee National Treasure, here to talk today about some flint napping and to get going. Vyrl, thank you, sir, for having me here
Pleased
today.
to have you here.
You bet, you bet. Well, Vyrl, we were looking around your shop. I've met some of your buddies up there. Y'all have been getting at it. Tell me, you talked a little bit about your grandpa earlier when you were walking around as a youngster and asking questions. Tell me a little bit about how you got into flint napping.
I grew up on a ranch farm. We ran cattle, open range, and the major money issue other than cattle was green beans. We grew green beans everywhere. As we grew those beans, we'd plow our grounds, and then after a rain, we'd go out and look for those arrowheads.
Okay.
My granddad was older, of course, and I asked him, I said, Grandpa, how'd they make these things? And he said, Vyrl, I don't know. Said, they were made before we came here, before the movement in Oklahoma. They were made even before the white man was here.
Right.
So they're 1,000 years old, like that, what we find.
Yeah.
But now we're trying to figure out how that was done.
Right.
Trying to figure out how they did these and what material was used and where they got the material and all that thing. So as a kid, we'd walk up and down these creeks as kids and we'd pick up those arrowheads.
Yeah. Always kind of good to go out after a rain in a plowed field or some of those creeks around my place, whether it's Tin Cup or Hog Creek, I always kind of took me a stick, and if you saw something shiny out there, there's a good chance that it may be a piece of flint and some points. But I was looking back in when we were kind of looking through your shop, there's some different pieces of obsidian. How did we get the obsidian here and start making points off of obsidian?
The obsidian was brought in generally from California.
Okay.
And during the Dust Bowl,
right,
our people from Oklahoma went to California.
Right.
That's the only places they worked.
Okay.
And they got into that obsidian. It was beautiful stone.
Yes.
So they bring some of it back.
Right.
And as we were trying to learn how to make those arrowheads, how they were made by the Aborigines.
Well, I know a lot of people that obsidian comes in many different colors and different things. Now, you were showing me earlier some materials that come from down in Texas. Can you tell me a little bit about that tech? You said this stuff here makes some of the best points and everything for flint napping. Can you tell me a little bit about that material?
Well, those two types generally of material, one's obsidian, which is volcanic material,
right,
and chert, which was formed by pressure.
Gotcha.
In the earth, and that's just the chert that we're finding. We call it flint.
Right.
But we don't have flint in America.
Right. Yeah.
The flint that we get that's really flint was used for the muzzleloader rifle.
Okay.
That would make a spark, and most of this flint that we have is hard to make. It'll make a spark. But that's what the people were trying to figure out, how to use this local material in a muzzleloader rifle.
Is there any particular type of point that you like to make better than the other? I mean, I know you got to have your favorite.
I like the fluted point.
Okay. Now tell me a little bit more about that fluted point. You were saying earlier it's a little bit hard to get that flute down there if you don't work it right.
After you make your point, a blank, call the blank, and get it out of the center, and it will be thicker in the center and taper off to the side.
Right.
And you braid that out to where you have like your finger sticking up. There's a middle finger here.
Yep.
From that middle finger, you braid it off right in the center, and you knock a flake right straight down the center of it.
Okay.
That's called a flute.
Okay. Right.
And you make one from each side.
Okay.
And then when you get that arrow point out, finish the rest of it, then your shaft will fit into those flutes.
Okay.
That's why the flute was there, so the arrow would fit into it.
I saw some little points up there, too. Now, are those more like a bird point?
Those are called bird points.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the ones that are fitted onto arrows for hunting.
Okay.
point.
Right.
They didn't use those big point hunting.
Right.
They were more like knives,
Yes, sir.
some kind of a knife or whatever.
Right.
The chert that we have, you knock off a flake, and if you compare the edge of that flake to the edge of steel, then the steel or iron will be jagged, and that steel or that flint will be smooth.
Mm-hmm.
That is the first scalpel that was fixed for operations. We used the flint
Yeah.
to use for incisions.
Okay.
The main reason for that from the medical field was that if they used steel for a scalpel, the edge of the steel was jagged and the flesh would not fit back together and heal well. So with the flint, it would cut that smooth enough that the flesh would heal itself together immediately.
I'll be darned.
And that was the first thing used. Of course, medical science quit using the steel. They started flint, and that was one of the first ones that known that was the better.
Yes.
And now it's just, the scalpels are all some type of metal.
Right. Right. Well, that's a good piece of history that I didn't know. I wish I'd have known that back when I was teaching at Carl Albert. I was teaching a little chemistry and microbiology. If I ever go back, Vyrl, I want to add that to it, and I'll give you credit down there. I'll footnote that piece right here from Vyrl Keeter all the way.
That's absolutely
the
issue.
That's neat. Is there any kind of rounding out? Is there any particular technique that you want the people to know about? Doing. I mean, we've talked about the fluting, but on the edge, I noticed some other pieces kind of got the little teeth-looking things on there. Tell me a little bit about that technique that's used when you're making that little serrated-looking edge.
Serrating is used with a sharp-pointed piece of metal.
Okay.
You work that arrow point down to where it has a sharp edge on it, and then you abrade that edge at an angle.
Okay.
And then you flake one side off with your flaker, which what I use is just a wooden rod or a piece of antler or something.
Right.
And get a copper. Copper is better than brass. Brass will chip.
Okay.
Copper will indent.
Gotcha.
And it won't chip out on you, so you'll have a good smooth cut when you cut into flesh with it.
Okay. Gotcha.
And that's the deal between flint versus metal.
Gotcha. Well, I know, Vyrl, it was a big honor, and I got to be a small part of it. We talked earlier about you being a national treasure. Can you tell us what that means to you at this time in your career, from flint knapping and being a proud Cherokee?
That's one of the highest honors that is bestowed upon an individual, and a Cherokee individual. It's not given to you. You've earned it.
That's right.
You have to earn it. I wondered if I was deserving when I found out what it was all about, and was encouraged to go for it by another national treasure that was already a national treasure. And Vyrl, we need you.
Yes.
We need you with your education. You have a great education background.
Yes.
We need that in the Cherokee Nation here. And you need to work with us. We can get you to be a national treasure. So that's how I got applied for it.
Man, we could sit here and talk all day long, and I appreciate your time that you've given us. And
that's very likewise.
Yes, well, thank you for the talent and your diligence to that talent.
Well, I appreciate what you people are doing for the rest of the people, such as our friends here.
Yes, sir.
They need to know that the Cherokee Nation is active.
Yes, sir. Yes,
it's
sir.
active and real.
Well, wado to everyone that's been viewing with us today with Mr. Keeter. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that everybody's had a good day. We need to get you back into the studio with the talented Jen Lauren. I believe she has a couple more national treasures that she's visiting with. So we'll see you when we see you. Wado.
How fun. Vyrl is such a great guy, and as you can see, an extraordinary flint knapper. But I can tell you that you'll definitely need safety glasses on if you attempt or witness any flint knapping, because those shards fly everywhere. Now it's my pleasure to introduce more Cherokee National Treasures for weaponry, Mr. Perry Vanbuskirk and Mr. Danny McCarter. CO, gentlemen.
Hello, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Wodo, for joining us today. So we want this to be a conversation about your crafts and your backgrounds. So feel free to respond to each other's answers. We really just want to have a conversation with you. So, I mean, first of all, look at the table. You all have brought quite a collection. So tell us what we have here today.
Okay, we brought different weapons, sort as atlatl, we have rock sling, we have some war clubs, stick ball, sticks, you know, blow darts here, stuff.
And blowguns, we brought blowguns as well, stick ball sticks. And so we brought a pretty good assortment of stuff. And Perry has crafted most of this stuff on the table, and then a lot of the stuff that I brought, I didn't craft. These are crafted by some friends of mine, as far as stickball and the blowgun. Yeah.
I mean, it's a rare treat to have all of these here in one place. A lot of times, I feel like National Treasures focus on, you know, one very significant piece of craft or artwork, and so it's really neat that you're able to do a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And I wonder, can you tell me the significance of traditional weapons within Cherokee culture and how we've come to recognize them as symbols of resilience? Danny?
Well, mostly when we talk about weapons, we are talking about the bow, arrows. As far as like the blowgun, the rock sling would be considered a weapon as well, but like the blowguns are more like tools, because we didn't use the blowguns for war. We never developed a poison for it. It was mostly for our small children. You wouldn't want them running around with the poison dart. But the atlatl, that's a weapon that's been around. This was invented by the caveman. It's been used by every group of people in the world. The only place that it is really not that evident is Africa, and I think it's because of the long javelins and spears that they use, but it's used by the Aborigines in Australia. Just about every group of the Eskimos in Alaska still use the atlatl for seals, and so it's a very great weapon. I mean, it's easy to master. It's just like throwing a ball, so it's pretty quick to pick up.
Yeah.
But as far as like with Cherokees, the blowgun was really, like I said, for our small children, and that's what I mostly do, is the blowgun and darts. And Perry is the man that puts on our blowgun shoot this for our native games and our Cherokee National Holiday.
So, Perry, do you have a favorite weapon to make? And also, I'd love to hear how you got started making weapons.
Favorite is pretty much what Danny had just talked about, the atlatl. I love it, because there are so many people out there right now that's really not familiar with the atlatl. And even though it's actually been around since, as we'll almost say, during the dinosaur age, because we was actually hunting the woolly mammoth, the mastodon, and the bison with it. And, so it's kind of like, if I went to it, it would be the weapon of choice.
Can you show us kind of how it works without actually?
This is the throwing stick. And they say what this does, it actually acts as a third elbow in throwing. If you see, you have 1, 2, 3 here. But the spear here is a spear. At one time, they just throwed it by hand. Well, somewhere through this, I will say, as evolution, someone figured out, we could actually take a device and hook this on there and throw this spear with it.
Yeah.
This way it gives it actually even more thrust and more power, and can actually project it further. And you want that thrust because, we're talking woolly mammoth, mastodon. Their hide and stuff was so thick, and the paleo points and stuff that they had was huge. So to be able to push them through that skin, they actually had to have something strong enough to do that. So that's where this came in.
I can't imagine. That is so cool. Really interesting to learn about. And so how did you get started making weapons?
I started when I was real young. I'll just say like in my teenage years. My uncle, Scott Ratcliffe, you know, as everyone kind of knows him, or anyone that has ever worked at the village will know Scott, because he was kind of like, as we'll say, I'll just put it this way: he was king of the village. You know, he knew all of this stuff. And with me, I never realized how important or any of this was at one time. You know, in my teenage years, I'd see him doing it all the time, and like my aunts and uncles, you know, I have three aunts that's national treasures, and one uncle, and so I seen it going on all the time, but it never really registered. And I learned how to do all this, but I never knew how important it was. I'll tell you this, until like in the 80s, when I actually first met Danny here and went to work in the village. That's when I found out that there are so many people that does not know all of these things and these trades that we had,
Right.
and stuff, and how important it was. And I also realized at that point then that there are so many Cherokees that don't do this, because when I grew up just seeing it all the time, I just thought everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
But you know, what
Yeah.
I didn't know was across the creek, they're not. They don't even know about it.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel privileged coming from that family that I did of the National
Absolutely.
Treasures. And
Absolutely. And just for those of you who don't know, the village, when they're talking about the village, is at the Heritage Center here in the Tahlequah, Oklahoma area. So Danny, I understand that you also learned from Scott,
Yeah.
and so can you talk about how you were taught exactly how to make blowguns? And
Well, when I first started at the village, I was really a tour guide. The man that Scott was probably one of the first men that I had taught me about the blowgun. But we had another man named William Cabbagehead, and he also, you know, did blowguns and bows. And really, the first time I seen anybody shoot a blowgun, well, my uncle was actually one of the first blowgun shooters in the village in 1967 when it opened. But I mean, at that time, I was a small child, so I really didn't think too much about it at the time. But I was in the Trail of Tears drama, is in the 70s, and my first job in the drama, whenever the lights would come up, I had a sack full of like styrofoam things that I would throw in the air, and William Cabbagehead would shoot it with the blowgun. And so that's kind of where I kind of got the feel for it. But then when I started to work in the village, Scott was the man that really, when he taught my brother, my oldest brother, Robbie, Rob, he likes to be called Rob now, but he's the one that Scott kind of took to that, because I was, like I said, I was giving tours. And so after a while, though, I started to sit down with them, and Scott would teach anybody anything. I mean, he was our elder in the village. He was our teacher, and that's really a Cherokee tradition. You know, usually the elders are the one who show you everything. And he taught guys how to flint knap. He taught us how to make blowguns. He was always trying to. I was telling Perry a story about when me and my brother first started down there, and we were sitting at our hut, and Scott come down there, and he was really talking Cherokee to us, you know, and we we didn't really understand, but you know, we just kind of smile and nod, you know. And he went on for like 20 minutes or so, and he goes, do you guys understand Cherokee? We're like, no. And he started laughing, and he goes, here I was talking. And so he was really a great teacher for us, and because he had a lot of patience too. I mean, and that was something that but you know, he taught a lot of the national treasures that you see nowadays. He taught a lot of stuff to them as well. But yeah, he taught my brother Robbie first about blowguns, and then he taught me. And so I always tell people, you know, a blowgun, I can teach anybody how to make a blowgun one day, burn it out, straighten it out. But the darts are really the art part of it. You know,
yeah,
the darts are really the art part of it, because rolling that thistle on there, That is really an art, because it takes a lot of practice, because I wasted a field full of thistle before I finally could get that thistle to stay on there. But like I said, Scott would always go, "Oh, try it again," and so I'd roll another one. And I was left-handed though, and my brother Robbie's right-handed, and so he had a hard time teaching me. But I think, and the thing about Scott, and I always tell people this story, is when you make a dart, if you really want to make a good dart, you got to keep the string tight when you're rolling it, because really when you pull that thing out of the thistle, you're holding that thread between your teeth and you're rolling it. Well, Scott didn't have, he had false teeth, but he didn't like to wear them. So what he would do is he always wore these like the dress shirts with the button. So he'd tie that thread to the button, and then he'd run it through his mouth like that, and then he'd hold it, and then he'd tie it on there. Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean,
what a skill.
That was really, but he would always amaze you with the stuff that he did. So we always called him Great Scott. And so.
Great Scott. I love it. And you all are, carrying on that legacy and teaching others coming up behind you. So Perry, can you take us on a brief journey through the process of making a Cherokee bow?
Well, Cherokee bow, nowadays, pretty much everybody has went to using what we call bow dart, which has different names, horizapple, hedge apple, stuff like that. It's became the wood of choice. But back then, we didn't actually have bow dart, so actually what they used was hickory, ash, black locust. And what you want to do is, I'll just teach you right here on screen, anybody that's watching, listen, here is the key to making a good bow that will not break and that will service you from now on. Is wood, if you cut wood, it has growth rings. You can see growth rings. Find you a growth ring and follow that growth ring from one end of that bow to the other on this face side. Don't ever cross grain it. If you cross grain it, that bow's useless. So the back side, you can see it's cross grained. It doesn't matter because it's going to bend and flex this way. But with that one grain all the way through, that will let it bend and come back. And like I said, that's kind of like the key to the bow.
That's the key. Got it.
And then the other is just comes in preference of like how you want to put your handle in it, and whether you want the back to look. But to give you an idea, Cherokees actually had what they called flat back. And if you look right here, this is actually flat. When the Europeans actually come over here and encountered Cherokees, they was kind of amazed at how two generations, through generations and like that, and two different cultures had actually progressed at the same time. They basically was all using the same bows and stuff, but the only thing with the Europeans actually was using what they called a D-back. The back side of it was actually round. So if you held it up and looked at it sideways, it would actually almost look like you was looking at a D.
Okay.
And the Cherokees, like I said, you can see it's flat. That was the only difference in the bows.
Okay.
And there's two different bows. We have a hunting bow, and then we have a war bow. We come here, but you could use either one. This is a hunting bow. It's a short bow. It's good for brush and stuff, for hunting, but you could also use it for war. But pretty much anything that is 60 inches or longer is considered to be a long bow, which was used during war.
Okay. It looks pretty well used. You've been out.
I've had this one quite a long time. I mean, I do carry it everywhere, do my demonstrations and all that stuff with it. And it, it was shot several years back when you came to the house and we got to actually do some of this stuff.
Yes, yeah, I would encourage everybody to watch Perry and Danny's stories on OCO TV. They're available anytime at oco.tv. Yeah, that was a really fun day to spend out there with you. So, it seems like both making a bow or a blowgun is very labor intensive, but I mean, is this something that you think anybody can do?
Yeah, I mean, it just all depends on wheel, I guess people can make them. But to be honest, I've never made a bow all the years that I've worked in the village. And a lot of the reason why is because I've seen so many guys just sit there and do this, and then when they pull it back, and it breaks the first time. So to me, the atlatl is a lot easier. It's a lot funner, and so that's usually what I work with. And I don't really mess with the bow a lot.
Yeah.
And so and plus I'm not really a deer hunter or anything like that. So. The blowgun has always been the weapon that I mean, like I said, it's really not a weapon, it's more of a tool.
Yeah.
And my answer to that question is, I don't think that you can teach everybody, because there is some that just don't quite get it or don't comprehend or actually don't want it is that bad, because every bit of this stuff that you see, it has to come from within as a want. Because when my uncle showed me that, I'd go down there and he'd make a new bow. He'd come over and he's like, come here, I got to show you a new bow. He said, let's go try it. So we'd go try it and shoot it. And I'm like, man, I became fascinated with it, But through the years of me teaching, I have seen that some people it's just like, well, we got to let's just maybe kind of move to something else that you can pick up, because that's not your thing, the bow's not your thing of making, so then we'll move to the atlatl or something else, that basically that they grasp. Because this was one thing that my aunts and uncles taught me and told me. We can actually show you and we can give you the basis of it, but where you take it from there is all up to you.
Absolutely. All right. So one last question for you both. Where can we all get out and put our hands on some of these types of traditional weapons or play some traditional games and use tools? You mentioned the blowgun contest. That's one place maybe?
Okay, well anyway, as Danny'd been talking about, we do the traditional games, and we run them throughout the summer months, all the way up to the holiday. We do travel kind of around and not to all 14 counties, but we, each year we choose different counties that we go to do this.
Great.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have for today, but I really appreciate you all joining us, and it's always a pleasure to get to hang out with Cherokee National Treasures, you two especially. So you're welcome back to the show anytime. We appreciate you.
Okay.
All right,
We
well,
appreciate
thank you.
you.
All right. To close the show, we welcome back an old friend, another Cherokee National Treasure, Mr. Robert Lewis. We're very glad to have him back in the studio and enjoy another story from Robert.
Osio, Isil Dogwado. Isil's my Cherokee name, given to me by my Cherokee grandmother. Next story I'm going to tell for you today is about a bear, rabbit, and a blowgun. I first heard this story from Chester Osawee, Jagay's son. Chester had actually told Rachel Dews, also National Treasure in basket weaving, and she related the story to me. So you get to hear a story that would have been passed down traditionally from person to person, as it would have done a long time ago. At one time, when animals gathered together, Rabbit was walking through the woods, and Rabbit was saying, I'm so hungry and I'm so thirsty, I need some food. I wish I could find some food. And sees a group of Cherokees sitting over there. The Cherokees are gathering food for a meal. And as they're sitting there and they're cooking and they're cleaning, Rabbit walks up there. And Rabbit gets the most forlorn look on his face. And Rabbit says, Cherokees, please, could I have some food? Could you give me just a little bit of food? Most of the Cherokees know that Rabbit's a trickster and a mischief maker. He gets in trouble and tries to get out of trouble. And for the most part, just likes to make people feel worse by doing all these tricks. So most of the older people are standing back just eyeing that rabbit suspiciously. But the children go running up and says, oh, look at the bunny rabbit. The rabbit's cute. Can we feed the bunny rabbit, please? Grandma looks down at the kid and says, I can't say no to you. Just give it a little bit of food. That rabbit's a trickster. You watch that rabbit. And so they feed that rabbit. Rabbit gets to eat all the food he wants. He goes, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I won't forget this. I'll bring you something one day, but thank you. Rabbit takes off. As Rabbit leaves, all the elders sit there and they continue to have their food and their cooking. Rabbit goes off into the woods and says, oh, that was a good meal. Now I need some water. So Rabbit came running over the top of the hill, was making her way down the path, and sees a bear blocking the path to the water. Bear's down there getting some water, getting some food and eating. Rabbit's looking at that bear, and Rabbit's going, wish he'd hurry up so I can get by. I need to get some water. Now, Rabbit could have just gone on down, but Rabbit's sitting there waiting. After a little while, Rabbit sits there, goes up to that bear and says, "Hey, bear!" Bear looks up, looks around, can't see what's going on, starts to go back into the water. Rabbit says, "Bear!" Bear stands up and turns around and goes, "Oh, what do you want?" Rabbit says, "I would like some water. You're kind of standing right in the path where nobody can get to it." Bear looks at Rabbit and says, "Well, there's more paths down the road." Rabbit says, "I know, but I want some water right here. Why don't you get your big fat belly out of my way?" Bear turns and looks at Rabbit and says, "Did you just make fun of my belly? You know, I could squash you with my belly." Rabbit steps back and says, "Yeah, I know you can squash me with your belly, but I just need some water, just one drink. Can you just let me get by for one drink?" Bear says, "Yeah, I would, but you're being rude. I think I'm going to get some more water." Bear starts to drink some more. Rabbit waits for a little bit and says, "Hey, Bear." Bear gets up and looks and says, "What do you want now?" "I'd like some water. You're still blocking the path. Can you move your big, smelly feet out of my way?" Bear reaches out and grabs that rabbit and says, "You're being rude. You better behave yourself. I've got my eye on you." Bear tosses that rabbit in the dirt and goes off laughing. Rabbit gets up and goes, "Oh, Bear makes me so, look at my fur, it's all dirty now. Bear makes me so mad." Rabbit finally gets a drink of water, but Rabbit's still frustrated. So Rabbit goes beside the riverbank, and there's river cane growing beside that cane. And as Rabbit grabs that river cane, begins to shake it, says, "I'm so frustrated, I'm so mad." Just like some people get so mad they begin to shake things. Rabbit breaks that cane, and when the cane breaks, a bunch of ants fall through and they take off running. Rabbit looks around and says, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to break up your house." Then looks down and says, "Hey, this is hollow. I can see through this." Rabbit, being curious, comes up with a game. Says, "I know. I wonder how far I could shoot a rock out of this." Rock bounces out. Rabbit says, "That went pretty far. I'll try a stick." Stick falls out. So that didn't work too well. "Ooh, here's a feather. I'll try a feather." The feather, to Rabbit's surprise, flew all the way across the creek and landed. Rabbit went, "Wow, that went far. I need some more feathers. I can't find any more feathers. There's no more feathers around here. I got to make my own feather." So Rabbit looks around, finds another stick, picks it up, chews one out, brrr, makes one end of it sharp. Says, I need something soft like a feather. What's soft? My fur's soft. If I rip some off my belly, they'll laugh at me. I can't rip it on my head, I'll look like skunk. I don't want to look like skunk. I'll rip it on my bottom. I don't see my bottom. Pulls that fur off the rabbit's bottom, goes, "Oh, that hurt." Ties that fluff on the end of that stick. Shoots it. First dart hits a tree. Rabbit goes, "Whoa, that stuck pretty good. I need to make up some more." Gets a bunch of sticks, makes them all sharp. Brrr. Then Rabbit says, "I can't keep taking fur. I'll be bald back there. I'll freeze when I sit on the snow. That won't work. I got to use something else." So Rabbit goes off into the woods. Rabbit finds thistle growing out in the woods. Thistle's a pretty purple flower plant. It has this fluff all over it. It looks like Rabbit's fur when it pops. So Rabbit's looking at all that fluff, grabs all the fluff he needs, ties all these darts together, practices all day, and says, "Where's Bear?" And goes back into the woods. Bear is sleeping out in the woods. And as Bear is sleeping, his hind end rises higher. Rabbit sees it, takes that first dart and aims. Goes right past that bear. Bear goes, Wonder what that was. Lays back down. Again, the hind end goes up higher. Rabbit takes another dart, aims, waits. When Bear's hind end gets really high, Rabbit, pow! Ah! Bear stands up. "Who shot me in the bottom?" Holds up that dart. The whole forest goes quiet. Nobody wants a bear mad at you. And then Bear hears giggling and laughter in the distance. Rabbit's laying beside that tree going, that was so funny. You went so high. You jumped higher than me. Bear says, "I hear you laughing. You're behind that bush in that tree. You're going to die." Bear charges. Rabbit gets up and says, "Uh-oh," and takes off running. Rabbits run fast. Oh, sure, everybody's seen a rabbit run. Bears can run up to 30 miles an hour. Bear's really mad, so bear's charging. All bear can see, though, is a rabbit. As the rabbit's running, is a stick being taken through the brush. Can't tell who's carrying it. So as rabbit's running as hard as rabbit can, rabbit's going, I'm gonna get caught, I'm gonna die. Bear's gonna catch me, I'm gonna die. Rabbit comes bursting out of the bushes and runs right into all those Cherokees. They're all looking at that rabbit. Rabbit goes, hey, I brought you a present, watch. Shoots that dart right at their feet. All the Cherokees go, hey, why are you shooting at us? No, I'm not shooting you. Look, it's a present, it's a gift, it's a blowgun. You shoot it, here's darts. Have fun, thanks for feeding me. Rabbit takes off. Cherokees look at each other. The Cherokees reach down. They grab that blowgun. The kids want to try it. They let some of the younger kids try it. Darts hit the ground. They look at each other and says, this would be a good teaching tool for our children. Teach them how to hunt. And while they're sitting there looking at that blowgun and dart, bear comes tearing out of the brush. And they all stop and they look at that bear. Bear sees the Cherokees. Bear sees the children. Bear sees that blowgun. Bear sees those darts. Bear makes a decision. All of you Cherokees, one of you out there, you shot me in the bottom. Y'all gonna die. Bear raises up. All those Cherokees look at that bear and they grab their bows and arrows out and they point them at Bear. Bear's looking at all of them and goes, too many of you. I'll get you one day. I see you. You got that blowgun. You got that dart. I find you. Grr. Bear backs into the woods. When Bear backed into the woods, all those Cherokees looked again at that blowgun and dart. And that bear's out there, and they still tell this story to their ancestors, like we tell stories to our children. And so when they tell these stories and pass them down to their descendants, we do the same. So somewhere out there, there's a group of bears out there still think a Cherokee shot it in the bottom. But we all know who did it. It was Rabbit. And we would tell Bear this, but nobody knows how to speak Bear's language anymore. And when we learn how to respect the earth and take care of the planet and take care of each other like we're supposed to, the animals will begin to talk to us again. And maybe we can explain what we happened and what saw and why Bear shouldn't come after us, because Rabbit actually shot Bear in the bottom. Well done. Ski.
That's going to do it for us today. As you've witnessed, traditional weapons were vital to our continued existence, and we sincerely appreciate all Cherokee National Treasures for sharing and perpetuating our ancient arts, crafts, and skills. I want to thank each of you for continuing to watch Chalagi wherever we are. We take great pride in bringing our Cherokee guests each month for a wide range of topics. And of course, Cherokees have no word for goodbye because we know we'll see you again. We say, Dodadago Hunt-y. Wado.